Hey, what's happening, people? It's Batnick here with another video, and today we are back with something a bit smaller before I get into any of the analysis videos, such as the Batman Gotham Knight video or the part 1 to a critique of Batman Begins video. We're diving into something a bit smaller today just so I can get something out for you guys, and this here's pretty interesting what we got here. So I was going about my business on Twitter, and quite a few people, including myself, stumbled upon this thread. It comes off as pretty hostile, like this individual here is really trying to prove a point. I'm going to take this piece by piece because this thread contains some really poor argumentation. I'm not trying to be mean or hateful. The goal of this video is to get this person or whoever watches this to look at what they say more than once and ask yourself, are my arguments strong? Do I come off as hostile or hot-headed? Is my point as clear as possible? And most importantly, do I have evidence? I'd also like to give some context to some of my more passive viewers. If you ask any avid Twitter user, they will tell you that Spider-Man Twitter is the worst. It is toxic, it is hateful, and it is disgusting. Is that true? To some extent, yeah, but the truth is, Spider-Man Twitter is full of a bunch of pussies. Gaping, stinking pussies. Every day, these people argue about which Spider-Man is better, and they can't decide if they're arguing as an adaptation or writing. You'll have your few gems of people that are respectful and intelligent, but for the most part, Spider-Man Twitter is the most unproductive clusterfuck you'll find. I'd also like to preface a few things. Saying this tweet is old, you're arguing about a fictional character, you're living rent-free in this person's head, you are dick riding, and other arguments like that are not real arguments. Our first tweet. Why do people hate MCU Spider Man but love PS4 Spider Man, even though they are essentially the same? It's like MCU Spider Man ends up becoming PS4's interpretation, in my opinion. They're both tech savvy, have genius mentors, and young Aunt Mays, use gadgets, both have battle suits. So we have our claim. MCU Spider Man and Marvel Spider Man are essentially the same. That is the argument. Keep that in your back pocket because it will be very important later. Our first few statements set up something of a foundation. They're both tech savvy, yes, have genius mentors. For the most part. I mean, Tony passed down incredibly dangerous technology that had the power to wipe out millions to a 16-year-old. Another reminder, Tony didn't think to use Edith during the final stand in Endgame. And Otto became a psychopathic murderer. But yes, they are both of very high intellect. Young Aunt Mays. Well, no. Marvel Spider-Man Aunt May is 65 in the game, and while MCU May's age isn't specified, Marisa Tomei is 55. Neither are young. Use gadgets. Well, by that logic, MCU Spider-Man is pretty similar to Batman. This is where things already start to crumble. You can't cherry-pick details from both to prove your point, at least not in this scenario. I did so in my Batman Hush video, but I was cherry-picking moments from the book and calling out the stupid cherry-picking of the source material. I had a reference for comparison. Spider-Man doesn't, at least not yet. Both have battle suits, in reference to the Anti-Ox suit and the Iron Spider suit. Let's put some lovely context on both of those examples, even though it doesn't really matter according to Menace. In the MCU, Peter's given the Iron Spider suit by Tony. He had no hand in making it. In Marvel Spider-Man, Peter made his Anti-Ox suit all by himself with the help of armor he and Otto Octavius made and perfected.
We did the impossible, Doc. But now I have to destroy it. With a little creation of my own.
Very important distinction, but we'll see later how not so important it is to Menace. And if you're referring to the advanced suit as his battle suit, the advanced suit doesn't serve a narrative purpose. Next tweet. So PS4 Peter can have a scientific mentor who built mechanical armor for himself, and that built Peter a suit with his tech company, but MCU Peter can't have a scientific mentor who built mechanical armor for himself and a suit for Peter with his tech company? Throughout this thread, Spider-Man implies that people are being hypocritical because they like Marvel Spider-Man because of X, Y, and Z, but hate MCU Spider-Man for the same X, Y, and Z. Context is very important. No matter how many straws you reach for, Marvel Spider-Man is vastly different from MCU Spider-Man. That's not a bad thing by any means. There's not many similarities besides the very superficial ones that Menace is listed in the beginning. Even with those, they're brought on by very different circumstances. It's comparing Captain America Civil War to Batman vs. Superman. MCU Peter relies very heavily on Stark tech, even in Far From Home to some extent. All of his gadgets are made by Tony, except his web shooters, but even those are upgraded by Tony. Marvel's Peter relies on tech he made himself, the only exception being the advanced suit, the impact webbing.
Huh, just got a text from Doc. Looks like he attached an idea for a Spidey gadget. Man, does he ever stop inventing?
and the anti-ox suit. Even then, the advanced suit doesn't really serve a narrative purpose. It's simply meant for Insomniac to distinguish their Spider-Man from the countless other interpretations. The anti-ox suit is built solely by Peter using tech he helped perfect. The easiest counter-argument is simply MCU Spider Man relies heavily on Tony Stark, while Otto Octavius relies heavily on Peter Parker. If it weren't for Peter, Otto wouldn't have been able to become Doc Ock, at least as fast as he did. While Otto had done most of the heavy lifting, inventing the arms, it was Peter that refined the smaller details, making them fully functional. Peter doesn't rely much on Ock for most of the story.
I got it, Doc. 2.8 milliseconds. Good work, Peter.
I call that a mild success. I call that unbelievable.
Next tweet. So PS4 Peter can have a young Aunt May that knows his identity as Spider-Man, although unknown to Peter, I'll admit, and MCU Peter can't have a young Aunt May that knows his identity as Spider-Man. We've been over this. There's a significant age gap between the two Mays. I will agree, both support Peter as Spider-Man. Marvel's May is the driving force of Peter's decision at the end of the game. If she wasn't there, Peter wouldn't have to sacrifice anything, losing any emotional resonance. MCU May is one of Peter's responsibilities in Homecoming, which is great, but that's dropped entirely in Far From Home. That is the problem people have. I'd also like to point out that this is the thinnest of strawmans. Nobody's arguing that MCU May is bad for the reasons listed. People argue she's a bad adaptation and a bad character because she doesn't play a major part in Peter's story, especially in Far From Home. There's no conflict between her and Peter, except in Homecoming. I'd say she's pretty solid in that movie. It's in Far From Home where fans have problems. She has little involvement and concern for anything Peter does, and she's a one-note character. On a side note, she's also objectified on multiple occasions for laughs, and that's a far cry from the May fans know and love. Next tweet. So PS4 Peter can have all these gadgets and an AI system, but MCU Peter cannot have all of these gadgets and an AI system. Once again, Marvel's Peter made all of his gadgets except for two. For his electric web, he used Jefferson's taser, and for the impact web, he used Otto's blueprint. MCU Peter only invented the web shooters. Everything else was made by Tony. Again, not a bad thing. You could see the problem, right? I don't think you're getting people's problems. MCU Spider Man is a very poor adaptation of Spider Man. That is the problem many people share. They believe he disrespects the original core and beliefs of the character. I myself like MCU Spider Man, but he's a terrible adaptation. I don't think I'm wrong in saying Marvel Spider Man is a good adaptation. My Spider Man knowledge is pretty limited, so I asked my friend SK Comics, who is well versed with the books, and he said yes, Marvel Spider Man is an 8 out of 10 adaptation of the character. Next tweet. So PS4 Peter can have a battlesuit armored version of his advanced suit that was made by his genius mentor, but MCU Peter can't have an armored version of his advanced suit that was made by his genius mentor. Context matters. The advanced suit doesn't serve a narrative purpose, and Peter built the anti-ox suit himself. The Iron Spider was built by Tony and is very vital to Peter's survival in Infinity War. Next tweet. So PS4 Peter cannot mention Uncle Ben directly and use subtle references to him, but MCU does the same, not mentioning Uncle Ben directly, but subtle references to him, and it's an uproar. First of all, that is some horrible grammar. And second of all, Marvel's Peter mentions Ben frequently, so you're wrong there.
You are so much like Ben. Honesty, that's what got me and Ben through the rough patches. You and Ben. Masters at turning my own words against me. And I am so proud of you. And Ben would be too.
MCU Peter has never even said Ben or Uncle Ben or even just my uncle. It doesn't seem like he's a driving force for Peter in this universe, especially in Far From Home. If Peter was really following his uncle's advice, with great power comes great responsibility, he would have helped Fury the first time he asked. It seems like Tony has more of an impact on Peter in this universe. Marvel's Peter is constantly putting others before himself. All of his choices clearly stem from his uncle's words. Next tweet. Okay, so the MJ missions are annoying, but PS4 Peter has an intelligent MJ that isn't always a damsel and will assist and fight back for Peter. But MCU Peter can't have an intelligent MJ that isn't always a damsel and will assist and fight back for Peter. This is something I'm pretty passionate about. Michelle is one of the worst love interests in any comic book movies or shows. She's one note, doesn't develop in any meaningful way, and I personally find her incredibly annoying, cringy, and unfunny. On the other hand, Mary Jane is charming, interesting, helps progress the story not based on sheer luck, and helps Peter develop in a meaningful way. And she's not annoying. Next tweet. So PS4 Peter can be in the same world as other heroes like the Avengers and, most likely, be an honorary member. But MCU Peter cannot be in the same world as other heroes like the Avengers and be an honorary member. I know Square's Avengers aren't confirmed, but they exist, referencing Square Enix's upcoming Avengers game. That first sentence is a post hoc rationalization. We don't know if Spider-Man is an honorary member, so you can't use that to help your argument without sounding like an asshat. The argument quite a few people present is most of what happens to the MCU Spider-Man is because of other events in the MCU. Mysterio is a product of Tony Stark. Vulture's motivation stems from his disdain towards the rich and powerful. Tony Stark. Edith, a really dumb plot device, is a gift from Tony Stark. Far From Home is the fallout of Tony Stark's sacrifice. Those are some of the problems people have. Not that he's in the universe, but Spider-Man's story is so dependent on this universe. Next tweet. Raimi Shields will see this and act predictably, with the quote-unquote Aunt May is a MILF. Iron Boy Jr., Toby better. Blah, blah, blah. As if I didn't clearly say, this is my opinion and I'm acknowledging similarities. I want you to remember, dick riding is not a form of transportation. Good night. And so the backpedaling begins. First of all, yes, Aunt May is a MILF. Saying this is your opinion doesn't shield you from criticism. It makes you look like a pussy because it's clear you can't handle criticism. You made a claim. People came up with multiple reasons why your claim is wrong, and now you're backtracking on your statement like a coward. For future reference, don't do this. Own up to your mistake. So you jumped the gun. You made a mistake. It's okay. Just do better next time. Next tweet. I see a lot of you misinterpret my message, and I understand I could have constructed the sentence better, but here I will highlight what I mean. That Otto created the advanced suit. That is what I am meaning, not the battle suit. You're still wrong in the context of your argument as explained earlier. The advanced suit doesn't serve a narrative purpose. Next tweet. Essentially does not mean exactly. An orange is essentially the same as a grapefruit, but it is not the exact same as a grapefruit. Similar, yet different. PS4 Peter is the grapefruit. MCU Peter is the orange. I am pointing out similarities. Shaking my head emoji. Then define essentially. It is super important to define your terms when arguing something, and you've already been proven wrong. They're not similar to each other at all. Using a grapefruit and orange is a stupid comparison. Comparing fruit to a human is incredibly shallow and lazy. The only similarities are they're fruit, they have skin, and they're round. They don't share taste or size. I just listed more than half the facts about grapefruits and oranges. There's no storyline to a grapefruit, you moron. Once again, more backpedaling. I'm pointing out similarities. You had to support your stupid claim. Next tweet. I'm muting this. I want y'all to know, every Spider Man is amazing, spectacular, astonishing. Whether it is comic, show, game, or film, Peter, Miles, or Miguel, if you understand that great power comes with great responsibility and do what's right, even at your own expense, then he then proceeds to play a clip from Spider-Verse. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. This man's armor has broken. What else should I expect? It's Spider-Man sweater, home to some of the biggest pussies known to man. They're the epitome of respect, in my opinion. Menace, I can officially call you a sore loser after looking at this idiotic thread. Final tweet I'm covering. And this one's a doozy. And a lot of you are saying the difference is context. Okay, so because one goes about doing a similar moment another way rather than the same, that makes one criticized more than the other? To me, it doesn't matter what route you take if you get to the same destination. Wow. So if I get through all of school by cheating on my exams and bullshitting my way through, and I end up in Harvard, I'm still really smart. I mean, look at my grades. All A's right there. You can't say I'm not because I got into Harvard. Doesn't matter how. Even though I didn't study and cheated on almost every test, I'm pretty much a genius, and you can't say otherwise because I made it into Harvard. Context doesn't matter. That's your line of logic, Menace. That's how stupid you sound right now. Context is so important in almost any argument. Why wouldn't you care about it? What is wrong with you? You must love the Star Wars sequel trilogy because those movies follow your line of ridiculous logic. Absolutely baffling how stupid this thread got. If you want a taste of how cowardly and foolish the Spider-Man fanbase is, look at this thread. Don't be like Menace. Stand by your arguments. Be proud of what you argue. Back up your claims. You know the rest. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed me covering this stupid thread that I found on Twitter. And I thought, it'd be kind of fun to respond to it, seeing as I haven't posted in about a month. So yeah, look out more for longer videos coming out in the future. I will also be trying to live stream every day because of the whole coronavirus thing. And I'm out of school for at least 2 weeks, so I have a ton of spare time on my hands to make videos and edit. So yeah, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like. If you didn't and disagree with some of my arguments, comment below. Let's be respectful. If you want a name call, that's fine. Talk shit, get hit. That's kind of how it works. And if you want more of mine content, make sure to subscribe. If you're looking for more longer professional and in-detail analysis of media, I suggest watching my Batman Hush the Absolute Worst video, where I cover a really bad animated Batman film in excruciating detail for about an hour. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.
I've been so alone ever since I left the tribe. That's just how it goes, guess I like the lonely vibe. But they'll never know, cause I'm always on my grind. And